Welcome to the Heartbreak Chronicles, where every story is a raw reflection of life. Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned, give us a like to show your support, and share this episode with your friends. Don't forget to leave a comment and let us know what you think. Now, let's dive into today's story. My name is Jack Thompson and I am 53 years old. Looking back, I still can't believe that this happened between me and my wife Olivia. We have been married for 23 years and have 3 children. Our oldest son, Nathan, our oldest daughter, Emily, and our youngest daughter, Sophie. We used to be a golden couple at a well-known movie studio in Los Angeles. I was a writer and Olivia was a producer. We have a happy and fulfilling family, and although we have experienced creative bottlenecks and growing children, we still love each other and have a stable relationship. Our kids are very good at what they do. Nathan and Emily have begun to make a name for themselves in the film industry, with Nathan as an up-and-coming director and Emily as an accomplished editor. Sophie, on the other hand, although still young, has already shown remarkable artistic talent, winning prizes for her drawings in school art exhibitions. However, just a year ago, cracks began to appear in our quiet life. It was a weekend morning and Olivia was pruning roses in our backyard garden. The sunlight jumped through the leaves and over her blonde hair as I stood at the kitchen window, watching her elegant figure with love in my heart. "Jack," she turned around suddenly and smiled at me. "I was thinking about something." "Yes, dear." I walked over to her with 2 cups of coffee. "I want to get back into the workforce," she said as she took the coffee and sipped lightly. "The kids are grown and I feel like I need some new challenges." I looked into her twinkling eyes and knew she was serious. "Of course," I said, "you've always been a talented producer. I'm sure you'll find the right job soon." Olivia gave a relieved smile. "Thanks for your support, Jack. I've been in touch with some old friends, and they've said there's a part-time opportunity for a script consultant job." "That's great." I was happy for her. "Which production company is it?" Olivia's expression was hesitant for a moment, but quickly regained its excitement. "It's an independent producer named Victor Russo. He's working on a new movie and needs someone experienced to help review the script." I nodded. "Sounds good. How are the hours?" 3 days a week, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Olivia replied. "Victor said it would give me plenty of time to take care of my family." It was a bit of an odd time to be working, but I didn't think much of it. I'm just happy for Olivia that she finally has a chance to get her career back. The next few months seemed to go well for Olivia. She came home every time excited to share interesting stories from work with me, always with a sparkle in her eyes, even though she sometimes looked tired. I thought it was the satisfaction that returning to work brought her. However, I began to notice some subtle changes. Olivia started learning fashion styling, buying new clothes, and buying lots of stuff for the kids. She became more active and our sex life became more frequent. At first, I thought that all these changes stemmed from her renewed self-confidence, but as time went on, the doubts in my mind grew stronger. One day, my friend Alex whispered to me at a party that he had seen Olivia at one of Victor Russo's parties. Alex said that Victor put his arm around Olivia and the two kissed a couple times. I was feeling a wave of vertigo, but I tried to convince myself that maybe Alex was looking at it wrong. That night, I came home early and wanted to talk to Olivia. As I push open the door, I see Olivia hastily organizing her briefcase. "Jack," she looked at me in surprise. "What are you doing home so early?" I fought back my inner turmoil and tried to stay calm. "I wanted to come back early to be with you." "Are you going out?" Olivia's expression was flustered for a moment but quickly returned to normal. "Oh, I just got ready to take a shower after working at home all day. Would you like something to drink?" I watched her twinkling eyes as the suspicion grew stronger in my mind. But I nodded, "Yeah, a glass of red wine." Olivia hurried into the bathroom as I sat on the couch, staring at her briefcase. After struggling internally for a long time, I finally didn't resist the temptation to open the bag. It was empty, with no work materials. My heart sank, and I was about to close the bag when a picture slipped out of the compartment. I picked up the photo with a shaking hand, and when I saw what it contained, I felt my whole world fall apart. In the photo, Olivia is cuddling intimately with another man, and their expressions are full of joy. I recognized the man as Victor Russo. I sat there and felt as if time had frozen, until the bathroom door opened and Olivia stepped out. "Jack," She saw the picture in my hand, and her face instantly turned pale. I can explain, but I can't listen to any more explanations. I stood up and looked at the woman I once loved with nothing but endless sadness and anger. Why, Olivia? I whispered, why would you do this to our family? Olivia's eyes are filled with tears, but I'm no longer sure if I should believe her tears. It was at that moment that I realized our marriage was cracked beyond repair. And this, just the beginning of the nightmare. That photo became an unbridgeable gap between Olivia and me. The next few days threw our family into chaos. Nathan and Emily sensed something unusual, but we all tacitly avoided Sophie, not wanting to involve the 10-year-old in the fiasco. I insisted that Olivia quit her job. At first, she refuses, saying it was just an accident and that Victor threatened to ruin her career. But at my insistence, she finally agreed. That night, we sat in the den and Olivia tearfully called Victor to tell him she wasn't going back. I had thought that this was the end and we could start fixing our relationship, but things are far from simple. A week later, I was making the final script changes for our new movie, Eternal Light. This sci-fi romance has been my brainchild for many years, and the investors are very happy with the script and the shooting schedule has been finalized. However, the day before we were set to start, the investors suddenly pulled out. I immediately contacted the head of the investor, a young man named Marcus. "I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson," Marcus said over the phone. "Our firm has suddenly been presented with a more promising project, so we've had to reconsider the allocation of funds." When I asked what the more promising project was, Marcus stammered and finally said, "It's Victor Russo's new movie." I felt a wave of vertigo when I heard the name. I hung up and took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. But I know it's no coincidence. Over the next few days, nightmares ensued. The studio we had booked was canceled due to equipment maintenance. Several important actors suddenly dropped out, claiming scheduling conflicts. And even the props company we had worked with for years suddenly said they couldn't deliver on time. Each time, when I pressed for a reason, the answer I got pointed to the same person, Victor Russo. I felt angry, frustrated, but more than anything, powerless. I knew Victor had a lot of influence in the industry, but I didn't think he would be able to destroy my years of hard work so easily. Finally, on a rainy afternoon, Victor showed up at my office. He was dressed in a smart suit and had a smile on his face if nothing else. The moment I saw him, I felt my blood boil. "Don't be so nervous, Jack," Victor said gently. "We can talk like civilized people." I took a deep breath and tried to control myself from rushing up and punching him. "What do you want, Victor?" Victor sat down in the chair across from me and crossed his legs leisurely. "It's simple. I want Olivia back at work. 3 days a week, same as before. In return, your movie can continue to be filmed, no holds barred." I looked at him incredulously. "Are you threatening me?" Victor shrugged. "I prefer to call it business negotiations. You see, Jack, Olivia is a talented woman. She deserves a better stage than being stuck at home as a full-time mom. That was her choice." I roared. "Really?" Victor looked at me meaningfully. "Are you sure you didn't force her?" I clenched my fists and tried to restrain myself from being impulsive. "Get out, Victor, or I'll call the police." Victor stood up and straightened his suit. "Well, if that's your choice. But I suggest you think about it, Jack. Your career, your family, it's all in your hands. Don't do anything stupid." After he left, I slumped in my chair, feeling my whole body drained of strength. I knew that by accepting Victor's offer, I was tacitly agreeing to Olivia's continued cheating. But if I refuse, my years of hard work will go down the drain. That night, I came home to see Olivia in the kitchen preparing dinner. Nathan and Emily watch TV in the living room while Sophie paints in her room. It was supposed to be a cozy family scene, but I felt a strong pang of unreality. "Daddy!" Sophie saw me and excitedly ran over and hugged my leg. "I drew a picture at school today. Do you want to see it?" Fighting back tears, I crouched down and hugged her. "Of course, honey. You must show me after dinner." At dinner, I looked at my family sitting at the table and suddenly realized that our family may never be the same again. No matter what choice I make, someone is going to get hurt. After dinner, I called Olivia into the den. I told her about Victor coming to see me and what he wanted. Olivia's face instantly turned pale. Jack, I swear I didn't know he would do this. I've made it clear to him that I'm not going back. I looked into her eyes, wanting to believe her, but the doubt inside me lingered. Tell me the truth, Olivia. What exactly is your relationship with Victor? Olivia was silent for a long time and finally said softly, at first, it was really just a working relationship, but then Victor started threatening me. He said that if I didn't cooperate, he would ruin your career. I I didn't know what to do. I feel like my heart is being ripped out. On one hand, my heart aches for Olivia. On the other, I'm angry at her for hiding it. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. We could have faced it together. Olivia was in tears. I was afraid, Jack. I was afraid of losing you, of losing this family. I thought I could handle it on my own. I was wrong. I'm sorry. We were speechless relative to each other, and the only sound in the room was Olivia's sobbing. Suddenly, a knock on the door broke the silence. Dad? Mom? It's Sophie's voice. Are you guys okay? Olivia and I looked at each other, and both saw the pain and helplessness in the other's eyes. We know that whatever choice is made will change our lives. But in that moment, I made a decision. I can't let Victor continue to control our lives. I can't let my family continue to live in lies and fear. I stood up and took a deep breath. We're going to expose the truth, Olivia. No matter what the consequences are, we're going to face them. Olivia looks at me, a flicker of fear in her eyes, but then it's replaced by determination. She nodded. You're right, Jack. We'll face it together. We opened the door to see Sophie standing outside with worry in her eyes. I knelt down and hugged her gently. Don't worry, honey. Mommy and Daddy are just discussing something important. Everything will be fine. But I knew in my heart that the next few days would be an uphill battle. It's not just the threat of Victor we're dealing with, it's everything we could lose. However, I knew it was the only way out. Only by facing the truth can we rebuild our families. It was at that moment that I made up my mind to expose Victor for what he had done, no matter what it took. I'll never forget that night. Immediately after we decided to expose the truth, I contacted the police and my lawyer. We decided to take legal action against Victor for extortion and sexual harassment. But things didn't go the way we planned. Just as I was getting ready to go to the police station, I got a strange phone call. It's Victor. Jack, his voice was threatening. I warned you not to do anything stupid. It seems you didn't listen. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, trying to control my emotions. You have nothing left to threaten me with, Victor. It's time for this to end. Victor sneered. Yeah? Then are you ready to lose everything? Your career, your reputation, even your family? I felt a chill run down my spine. What do you mean by that? I have a lot of friends, Jack. Some in Hollywood, some in other places. Do you really think you can win? Just then I heard a commotion from the other end of the line, followed by a scream. It's Olivia's voice. Jack, don't come. It's a trap. Then the phone suddenly cut off. My heart raced, and I immediately turned around and headed for home. When I arrived home, the sight I saw cut me to the core. My front door was wide open, and my living room was a mess. Olivia was lying on the floor with a visible bruise on her face. Nathan and Emily knelt beside her while Sophie huddled in the corner, crying her heart out. Daddy! Sophie saw me and immediately jumped into my arms. There are bad people coming. They hit Mommy. I'm so scared. I hugged Sophie tightly and looked to Nathan. What happened? Nathan's eyes were filled with anger. It was Victor's men. They broke in and said they were going to teach Mom a lesson. Emily and I tried to stop them, but I saw the long scratch on Nathan's arm and blood on the corner of Emily's mouth. I felt a wave of vertigo, a mix of anger and fear. I knew Victor would retaliate, but I didn't think he'd be so heartless. Just then, the sirens came on. Neighbors heard the commotion and called the police. The next few hours were chaos. The police came, the paramedics came, and our family was taken to the hospital for tests. Fortunately, aside from a few superficial wounds, no one was seriously injured. But the mental trauma is far from over. That night, our entire family gathered in the hospital room. Olivia is lying in the hospital bed, pale. Nathan and Emily sat on the sidelines. looking serious. Sophie, on the other hand, is snuggled in my arms, still shivering slightly. "We have to tell the children the truth," Olivia said weakly. "They have a right to know what happened." I nodded and took a deep breath. Then I began to recount everything that had happened in the past few months. Victor's threats, Olivia's plight, my skepticism and anger. I try to use euphemisms, but the brutality of the truth still shocks Nathan and Emily. "So, Mom and that Victor?" Emily's voice trembled. Olivia closed her eyes in pain. "I'm so sorry, kids. I never thought things would turn out this way. I didn't know what to do." Nathan stood up suddenly, an inscrutable expression on his face. "You should have told us a long time ago. We're not kids anymore. We could have faced it together." I tried to explain, "Nathan, we're just trying to protect you." "Protection?" Nathan interrupted me, sarcasm in his voice. "Look at what's happening now. Is this what you call protection?" Emily gently took Nathan's hand. "Calm down, brother. Mom and Dad are doing this for our own good." Sophie looked up at us with teary eyes. "What's going to happen to us, Daddy? Will that bad man come back?" I feel like my heart is in my mouth. How I wish I could give Sophie an affirmative answer and tell her that everything is going to be okay. But I knew I couldn't lie to my kids anymore. "I don't know, honey," I whispered. "But I promise I'll do everything I can to protect our family." Nathan grunted. "Protected how? Like before?" "Nathan," snapped Olivia, "don't talk to your father like that. It's not all his fault." A silence fell over the room. Everyone was lost in their own thoughts, trying to digest the sudden truth. Finally, it was Emily who broke the silence. "What do we do next?" I looked at Olivia and then looked around at my children. "We're going to stick together. We're going to give the police all the evidence against Victor. No matter how many friends he has, the law is always on the side of justice." "But what if he comes back?" Sophie asked in a small voice. I crouched down and looked Sophie straight in the eye. "If he tries to come back, I'll protect you. We'll move to a safe place until this is over." Nathan frowned. "What about your job? What about our schools?" "None of that matters," I said firmly. "What matters most is our safety and unity. The rest, we can rebuild slowly." Olivia struggles to sit up and holds out her hand. All of us gathered around her in a tight circle. "I know I've made a big mistake," Olivia said, tears in her eyes, "and I don't expect you guys to forgive me right away. But I do hope that you will give me a chance to make up for my mistakes. I love each and every one of you more than my life." Nathan's expression softened a bit, and Emily gently took her mom's hand. Sophie threw herself into Olivia's arms and sobbed loudly. I watched the scene with mixed feelings. I know that this is just the beginning of our long road to recovery. We also have to deal with police investigations, possible court proceedings, and rebuilding our shattered trust. But in this moment, watching my family cling together, I felt a glimmer of hope. Just then a knock on the door interrupted us. "It's a police officer." "Mr. Thompson," he said gravely, "we need to talk to you. It's about Victor Russo." I took a deep breath and looked at my family. Worry and fear were in their eyes. I give Olivia's hand a gentle squeeze and stand up. "I'll be right there, officer." Before I walked out of the hospital room, I looked back at my family. Whatever awaits us next, I know we must face it together. Because only then can we truly heal this wound and rebuild our family. The truth has surfaced, but our battle has just begun. The news brought by the officers was like a bomb that completely shattered the fragile hope we had just built up. "Mr. Thompson," the officer said gravely, "Mr. Victor Russo was found dead in his home last night. The preliminary investigation indicates that the cause of death was a gunshot. In light of the dispute between you, we need your assistance in the investigation." I felt a wave of vertigo and had to hold onto the wall to stay on my feet. It's not possible. I was with my family all night." The officer nodded. "We know, but we need to get more details. Can you come back to the station with us?" I looked back at the hospital room and Olivia was watching me anxiously through the glass window. I nodded gently, signaling that everything was fine, and followed the officer out. In the interrogation room at the police station, I recounted in detail everything that had happened over the past few months. Victor's threats, Olivia's plight, and tonight's attack. The officers took careful notes and asked pointed questions from time to time. Just as the interrogation was about to end, the door was suddenly pushed open. A middle-aged woman walked in, her eyes red and swollen, obviously having just cried. "You're Jack Thompson?" Her voice was filled with anger and sadness. "You killed my husband." I looked at her in shock. "What? You're Victor's wife?" The officer immediately stood up and tried to calm the woman. "Mrs. Russo, please calm down. We are in the middle of an investigation." But Mrs. Russo apparently can't be cool. She rushed to me and shouted at the top of her lungs, "Victor told me everything. You threatened him and forced him to leave Hollywood. Now you've killed him." I felt a wave of dizziness. Victor has a wife? What did he tell her? None of this makes sense. At the officer's urging, Mrs. Russo was eventually removed from the interrogation room. But her words keep echoing in my head. A few hours later, I was finally allowed to go home. By the time I walked out of the police station, it was dawn. Nathan was waiting for me outside, his expression serious and tired. "Dad," he whispered, "someone wants to see you." I followed Nathan to a cafe near the hospital. At a table in the corner sat a woman I had never seen before. She looked to be in her early 40s and had an elegant demeanor. "Mr. Thompson," she stood up and held out her hand. "I'm Kate. I'm Victor's former assistant." I cautiously shook her hand and sat down. Nathan stood by, watching us warily. Kate took a deep breath and then began to narrate. "I know how confused you must be right now, but I have to tell you the truth. Victor, he's not as simple as you think." Over the next hour, Kate revealed a world I never imagined. Victor was not just a successful movie producer, he was also involved in the underground world, in money laundering, extortion, and other illegal activities. Olivia is not his only victim. There are many other women who have been threatened and controlled by him. "But why say it now?" I asked, skeptical and angry inside. Kate lowers her head. I was one of the victims. Victor had a lot on me. It wasn't until he died that I dared to come forward. I felt a wave of nausea. It was all too much, too surreal. "So," Nathan snapped, "does Mom know about this?" Kate shook her head. "I'm not sure, but I suspect she might know something. Victor, he likes to create competition between his toys." I closed my eyes and felt a sharp headache. When I opened my eyes again, I saw disappointment and anger written all over Nathan's face. "We've got to tell Mom," he said, "and Emily and Sophie. They have a right to know the truth." I nodded, though deep down, I wished I could protect my family from these terrible truths. But I know that hiding it will only lead to more damage. Back at the hospital, Olivia is ready to be discharged. Emily and Sophie were both in the hospital room, and both had looks of anticipation on their faces when they saw us return. I took a deep breath and then began to recount everything Kate had told me. As I recounted the story, the atmosphere in the room became heavier and heavier. Olivia's face turns pale, and Emily clings to Sophie's hand while Sophie looks at each of us in confusion. When I finished speaking, a long silence fell over the room. Finally, it was Olivia who broke the silence. I don't know what to say," her voice trembled. "I knew Victor wasn't a good person, but I never thought." "How much do you know, Mom?" Emily asked suddenly, a hint of accusation in her voice. "Are you really just the victim?" Olivia looks like she's been slapped. "Emily, Enough." I interrupted them. "This is not the time to point fingers at each other. We need to stick together." Nathan sneered. "Solidarity? After all the lies?" I felt a wave of exhaustion hit me. Our family, once so warm and harmonious, is now filled with suspicion and mistrust. "Look," I said, "I know everyone is hurting and angry right now, but we're still a family. We need to support each other, not hurt each other." Sophie, who had been silent, suddenly spoke up. "Can we ever go back to the way things were, Dad?" I look at my youngest daughter, and there is fear and hope in her eyes. How I wish I could give her an affirmative answer, but I knew I couldn't lie to her anymore. "I don't know, honey," I whispered, "but I promise we'll do everything we can. We'll get through this together." Just then, my cell phone rang. It's the police department calling. I went out into the hallway to answer the phone, and when I came back, Everyone was looking at me expectantly. The police have found new evidence, I said, and they think Victor's death may have been self-induced. They found a suicide note detailing all his crimes. The room fell silent again. Everyone is digesting this new information. So it's all over? Emily asked carefully. I shook my head. No, this is just the beginning. We still have a long way to go. We need to get counseling and rebuild the trust between us. It won't be an easy process. Olivia reached out and took my hand. We'll face this together, right? I looked into her eyes and saw remorse, pain, but also hope. I nodded softly. Yes, we'll face it together. Nathan and Emily exchanged a look before joining us. Sophie swooped in between us, and we formed a tight circle of hugs. In that moment, even though we were both bruised and battered, I felt a glimmer of hope. Our family has been through great trials, but we are still together. I know that rebuilding trust and repairing relationships will be a long and difficult process. But there is hope if we are willing to try. Truth brings hurt, but it also brings rebirth. Our story is not over, but has just turned a new page. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.